Hello, everyone. Welcome to LLK number six. No, number 76. This is Knit with Laura and my alter ego, Lola. I am Laura Nelkin. I'm a knitwear designer. I live in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region outside of Ithaca. And I am joining you tonight with my alter ego, Lola. I am a firm believer that everybody should have an alter ego because whenever you make a mistake, whatever it is, you can just throw your alter ego under the bus. It also means that I can be like kind of professional and together, and my alter ego Lola can be completely inappropriate and spicy. It's almost like having two people in one podcast together. So, those of you who have watched my podcast before, welcome. If you are watching live, there is chat happening over here on my right hand side on the screen. You'll see it on the right hand side of your screen while you are watching. Feel free to introduce yourselves and say where you are watching from. There were people chatting before the live started, which is always really fun to get to see what you all are up to. If you are watching later, welcome. Enjoy yourself. I do my best to not participate too hard in the live chat so that it's fun for you to watch this at any point. At the end of this live, I will ask if there's any questions and bop over to the live chat and answer questions that you all have. So anything that I talk about in this live, once we're done and it's over, there's going to be links below. So if you're watching later, just look below for those links for anything that I'm talking about, whether it's like a sweater or a club or a yarn or a book or whatever it is. If you are watching live, those links will be up about 15 minutes after I'm done. I've already got them ready to go for you. So that's just like a little housekeeping. In tonight's live, I have a little too much to share because it's been a minute since our last live. One of the biggest things that I'm going to do is show you with Lolanchita, which I am wearing, how I figured out how to do a bottom up yoke construction where the sleeves are top down. And there's a few reasons why you want to do that. And I'll go over those. And then on my needles, I have a little sample to show you how easy it is to work with Stitch Saver. So I'm going to do a live demo tonight, which I don't always do during lives, but I think they're pretty fun to watch me kind of knitting live. I also have pictures of Maviola, which I'm wearing, which is May's Lola's Choice kit and design. And then I have lots of yarn that I bought in the last month, some fabric, some other little goodies, and then some things that are almost off my needles. So let's go ahead and start like we always do by talking about what is off my needles. And then we'll talk about what's on my needles. So what is off my needles are Lolanchita and Maviola, both on which I am wearing. For those of you who've been following me for a little while, Lolanchita is a sport weight version of a sweater that I designed about 4 years ago called Lolanchita that was knit in Aran weight yarn. I used Manchalopi from Wool Dreamers, which is this like very warm, unspun roving that was you had to be so very gentle when you worked with it, and it created this gorgeous kind of diaphanous winter sweater. And I always wanted to do a lighter weight version of it for summer. It took me about 18 months to get this yoke the way that I wanted it to be. I actually ripped it out 3 times. So you might have seen examples of me showing it last summer where I was not happy with it. But if you look at Lolanchita now, here I am wearing her down at Cuga Lake, which is just down the hill from me. You can see that I got that yoke and sleeves just where I wanted her to be. I'm really happy with the fit of this yoke. It's got just the right amount of kind of like flex and flare, and it falls beautifully. I love the Lolancha stitch that I use on this pattern. I also have mitts that uses this stitch, a shawl, and then the Lolancha sweater. I'm also really, really thrilled with these photos. Julia, my new photographer, did a bang up job on a day that was very, very sunny, really like capturing the sun and light. I knit this Lolancha in Barocco Remix Light. My testers used a variety of sport weight and DK yarns. Some even used fingering weight yarn for a fabric that's much lighter and drapier. It's really fun to see what they all used if you go over to Lolanchita on Ravelry. But those are just some fun photos to give you a closer look up of the sweater. So what I wanted to show you that's still on my needles, and it's on my needles because I'm going to demo with it tonight, is, I think I told you about this in the last live. I'm working on a version of Lolanchita that is the same stitch gauge as the one that I'm wearing, but I used one skein of Jill Draper Make Stuff Lee. And Lee is a 60% Rambouillet wool and 40% alpaca. This colorway is Clear Skies, which is really beautiful. It's like blue and brown all at the same time. And what I did with this sweater, because I was using one skein that had 880 yards in it, is I worked the body, and I did about a 12-inch length body, which is the same length of this favorite sweater I had from Iceland that uses lace weight yarn at 5 stitches to the inch, which is exactly what I did here. So it had about a 12-inch body, and it's just kind of like this light diaphanous winter sweater that layers really easily and packs down really small for travel, which you know that I love. So I worked the body, and then before I went to work the yoke, you can see over here that I have stitches on Stitch Saver. I held the underarm stitches, and then I provisionally cast on stitches for the sleeves, and then I worked the entire yoke. And then what I did was I weighed my ball of yarn, and I had exactly 15 grams left after working the body and the yoke. So that meant that this sleeve uses exactly 12 and a half grams. And if I did it right, I have exactly 12 and a half grams of yarn left here. And that is what I'm going to do on the other side for that sleeve. And I'm ready to do that. I'm going to set it up with you tonight after I show you how to do that provisional cast on my scrap project. And then I'm going to show you how I slide these all onto a needle. And then this weekend, my girl is visiting, and I will be able to whip out that final sleeve, and this baby will be ready for a photo shoot. So you'll get to see that in a second. I think it's really fun for you to see, like, one of the things you can do when you're doing a bottom-up sweater that has top-down sleeves. You can really kind of get the most out of your yarn. So it's a nice thing to do if you're not sure you have enough yarn for a full-length sleeve. One thing I'll say is this is not blocked, so it's going to get longer, but I'm ending up with a sleeve that I'd say it's going to be probably like right around here. I wish it was an inch longer. If I had thought about it, maybe I could have gotten a second skein and like alternated on the yoke so that the sleeves could be longer. But I was also really into this like using up stash one skein of yarn sweater. This one's the size 3, if any of you are wondering what size I made. So I have this little mini version of the exact sweater that I'm wearing, and I think it would be fun to show you this underneath the camera. So let's go ahead and go to underneath the camera, and you can see that I've got the body of a little mini sweater all done here. And then what I have right here in my hand, and I'm going to kind of zoom in so you can see this a little closer. Is that working? Yeah. That's working right there. I'm going to go ahead and take this 2mm Stitch Saver, which is a hollow silicone tubing. And if you haven't heard of this before, I'll give you a link below after the live so that you can read more about Stitch Saver. And Stitch Saver is great for a lot of things. One thing that it's really good for is holding stitches. So I'm taking that piece of Stitch Saver, putting it onto the end of my needle. And right now I'm just sliding over 4 stitches for my underarm stitches. In the pattern, it's definitely more than 4 stitches that are held for the underarm stitches. And then with that same piece of Stitch Saver, I'm just going to kind of hold it just like this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to provisionally cast on stitches onto that same piece of stitch saver. I can even make it a little smaller right there so you can see it really well. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm provisionally casting on. Those of you who've worked some of my patterns in the past have done this provisional cast on before onto stitch saver. If this is new to you, what provisional stitches are stitches that you can come back to later that will be live. So I'll be working the yoke this way on these stitches, and then these stitches I'm going to be able to slide back onto a needle later to be able to do the sleeve. I do have a separate detailed video tutorial about how to do provisional casted stitches onto stitch saver, losing my words, if you've never done them before. And then once you have the stitch count for the sleeves, for the size that you're making, you'll just go ahead and join back into the yoke again. This was a spot in the pattern that the testers had some questions about. So it was something that I realized I wanted to demo live so that if anybody's knitting this, or sorry, not if, when you are knitting this later, you can come back and watch this demo. So that's one sleeve right there. Then you would work across the front of the sweater and then hold your stitches for the second underarm right here, and then provisionally cast on for the second sleeve. So that's how easy it is to work that provisional cast on for doing the top down sleeve. Now the next step I can show you on Lolanchita that I'm working on. So let's see. We'll go to the overhead camera, and that's just big enough for you to see it. And I'm personally excited to do this because it means I get to start knitting on the sleeve, right? You'll see that I have a little cable lock right here holding my stitch saver. There is nothing worse. I mean, there's a few things worse, but it is really annoying when you reach into your bag to get out your project and you like pull your stitch saver or pull your needles out of your project. So what this little cable lock does right here is lock down the stitch saver. So if I was to grab the stitch saver by mistake, it wouldn't pull out of all those live stitches. That is definitely one of those moments where you would like stop breathing for a second. And what I do in situations like that is go find a needle that is much smaller than what I'm working with. And then I try to get all of those stitches before they start to worm their way all over the place. So what I'm going to do right now is take that cable lock right off there, and I'm going to slide all of these stitches onto a needle. I find it a little easier to do this with a needle that is longer than you're going to work with for your sleeve and also a smaller gauge than you worked with. So I worked with a US size 5 for the body of this Lolanchita, and I've got like a US size 2 or 3 needle right here. And what I'm going to do is I put the end on really, really tight, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of pull the needle through those stitches. And then I'm going to go ahead and do that again on the other side. And you can see how fast it is. Wasn't that fast? To put all of your stitches onto a needle. Now, the next thing that you want to do is you can either attach your yarn and start working with your working needle, or if you want, you can go ahead and transfer all of your stitches to your working needle. And I kind of suggest doing that because when you go to do the provisional cast on, you're going to see that every other stitch, let's really zoom up in there so you can see that closely. Do you see that every other stitch is oriented with the left leg to the front of the stitch? When you slide those stitches onto your needle, you're going to want to reorient every other stitch just of the provisional cast on. That will not be true for the stitches that are held at the underarm. So I would go ahead and transfer over to your main needle, whichever needle you are working your sleeve with, and then go ahead and work the sleeve. What's going to happen when you work the sleeve is you're going to be picking up stitches in like, oh, there's a stitch that fell. I know why that was, because I did this earlier and put it back on the stitch saver. So that was just, we call that user error. You're going to pick up stitches in the little gap, And if you have extra gaps that are bugging you, just pick up more stitches and decrease them down to tidy up that little spot under your arm. It is pretty easy to do. And you can see that's looking, so look at this fabric. Isn't it gorgeous? And you can see that stitch right there. I'm going to Iceland in June, and I am so excited to wear the sweater. And then I am also so excited to wear it with something I'm going to show you in just a few minutes. So I'm going to put this aside, and I am going to talk to you about Maviola, which I am wearing around my neck. And then we're going to talk about some things that are on my needles, and then we'll get into some crap I bought since I saw you last. I hope you enjoyed that demo. I did it on purpose at the beginning of the live, so those of you who are working on Lolanchita later and need to find it can find it right in the beginning, and I'll probably give you a timestamp for it as well below to make it easy to find. I see someone just joined us from Albany, New York. Hello. Okay, so next up is Maviola, and I am wearing one version of Maviola around my neck. Maviola is a Maviola's little scarf. So Maviola was designed for my small knitted kit club, Lola's Choice. It uses a really beautiful yarn from Madeline Tosh called Tosh Lunar, which used to be this gorgeous lace weight yarn from Shibui Knits, who closed. And it's a merino wool and silk lace weight that just feels so good around your neck, and it's really lovely to knit with because it's twisted in this way that it just flies on your needles. I knit multiple versions of Maviola. I'm going to give one to my mom. I had to keep one. I made her one for Mother's Day, and I had to keep it for a little while so I could use it for things, and then it's going to get off, and I'll probably bring it next time I see her and surprise her with it. So Maviola is knit with these little mitered squares, and it's really fun to work. I really enjoy knits that kind of have steps to them. They go from one step to the next. And Lola, my alter ego, also really loves to knit things that start looking like thongs, which is just so weird. She's such an odd duck. It happens all the time. So Maviola, I didn't mean for it to start like a thong, but it totally did. Here's the start of Maviola right here. It starts with the provisional cast on, and then it has mitered shaping happening with stitches cast on with both knitted on cast on and a purled on cast on. So there's lots of learning in this. There's slip stitch edges. There are medallions that have lace in them, and then medallions that are solid. There are 2 colors of beads included in the kit, so you can decide. That was very funny, Susie. I just read that your granny panty content. You're silly. 2 different color of beads because I wasn't sure if club members were going to want to choose a bead that kind of contrasted or it was more similar to their yarn. And you can see that it's a really fun little summer scarf. I also love wearing it around my head as like a little neckerchief. I'm not sure if I have a photo of that in here. That photo is on Ravelry. And then you can see that club members got a little tin with their beads in it and a piece of super floss for placing their yarn. And then they also got some butterfly PT, which I keep meaning to make a little Instagram video of what happens with that tea. So when you brew that tea, it's blue. It's really, really good with a little honey in it. And then if you add a little lemon to it, it turns purple really quickly. And my friend said that they made mocktails with it because the tea that it made was like this really, really deep purple. And then they added seltzer to it and more lemon, and they had like a little mocktail party. So maybe we'll do that this weekend. I have a few bags left here. I will say for Lola's Choice, so many of you are in Lola's Choice, you know all about it. She's my small knitted kit club. I release kits for Lola's Choice every other month, so it's like January, March, May. The next one is in July, and I went to H&H, which you're going to hear more about in a few minutes, and I got a lot of feedback that I'm not charging enough for Lola's Choice. And people aren't totally wrong because everything is costing more. Like shipping has gone up astronomically, the cost of yarns has gone up. It's getting harder and harder to find yarns that I'm excited to share that also fit my budget. And I keep going over the budget for Lola's Choice. There's kind of no way around it right now. And I'm thinking about how to shift things. And one idea I have is if I can grow the numbers of Lola's Choice, I can kind of keep the price the same. So maybe like my markup on every kit is not as much, but overall it's still kind of the same experience for me. I'm designing one thing, we're building the kits. It doesn't take that much more to like build the kits. It's more like the ordering of stuff, and it doesn't matter if I'm ordering, 400 or 500 of the thing, whatever it is. So this is my way of saying if you love the price of Lola's Choice, which I love the price of Lola's Choice, it is very well priced, I believe, for what it is, especially now. The price hasn't raised in years. Help me get more people in Lola's Choice, because that's going to be the way that I can keep it at the price it is, if that makes sense. There's my little shout out to y'all to help me out a little bit. July's kit is freaking awesome. The materials are all on their way from all over the world right now. It's designed. I changed my mind about bead color, so I'm waiting for beads to come to knit like the final ones. We have photography at the beginning of June before I leave on my cruise, and then kits will get built by my awesome helper Vanessa while I'm away, and they will ship when I get back at the beginning of July. And oh, I just talked somebody into joining the club. Good job, Lola. She's good. I'm dancing like my friend Gigi right now. July's kit is freaking so cool and unique and a statement piece. And I've been wearing it around. Like I knit it and then I needed to test it. And y'all probably have a little bit of a hint about it, but I've been wearing it like when I go hiking and like with people who I know aren't in Lola's Choice, so that they're not gonna like, I'm not gonna spoil anything. I wore it to the grocery store, but sometimes things like that I especially need to wear to see like what the failure points are, or like if I need to get some closures a little bit. Yeah, I'm giving away too many hints right now, but I am super excited about it, and it's gotten a lot of attention and love just in the little bit of wearing that one. So there are like 8 more kits left of Maviola, and then signups will roll to July. So those of you who are waiting to sign back up until you get that email from me telling you that your club membership is complete, if you're one of those people right now, just wait a teeny tiny bit longer. That email should be going out soon, especially if we get a few signups tonight. Okay, that's my soapbox. Let's have a sip. New Spindrift flavor. This one is Yuzu Mandarin. It's really good. I think it's going to be very good with a little gin at some point. Not tonight, but I keep being like, maybe this weekend. You never know. Okay, I showed you Lolanchita. I showed you Maviola. I think the next thing I want to show you is the other thing that is on my needles besides Lolanchita and the July Lola's Choice, which I just told you about. I'm giving you a little sneak peek here. Get ready. I've been knitting a second scarfscape with a new stitch on it, and it's going to reveal with the cruise in June. Everybody on the cruise is getting this option of knitting scarfscape and the original one, which I forgot to bring up or have a photo for you, but I'll give you a link below. And I'm going to end up doing kits from Billum, and they're going to come out in like the end of July, beginning of August. And this one I'm doing in a new colorway that is so, I'm being such a tease. It's so beautiful. It goes from like deep chocolate to blues to cream on the end. And I'm purposefully not showing you. It's very weighty and yummy. And I'm at the bind off, and I have 2.7 grams of yarn for the bind off. If my math is correct, I think I'm going to have like 8 inches of yarn left. I've chosen the beads. I'm going to show you what they look like because it's so freaking beautiful. Let's see right here. Look at that. Like, look at those blues. Look at that brown right there. Look at those beads. And then you got the brown. I'm just teasing you. I forget the name of this colorway, but you'll know in July. Isn't it pretty, Susie? And then that it's so different than the other Scarfscape, which was like purples and orange. And then it goes into this cream right here. And I think I'm putting my favorite beads on there, which are my favorite, like turquoise. They're called Picassos. They're from Miyuki, and they look like, if I can like get it in there and overhead zoom so you can see it. Oh, you can see it right there. They're so beautiful. They look just like the stone turquoise, but they're glass, and I think they're going to be so freaking pretty on that beige color right there. So I get to start that tonight once I'm done with some dishes and some cooking this evening. And I will let you know how it goes with the world's. I am playing some yarn chicken, and I'm excited to do it. And it's fun to do it along with you. So I will report back as soon as that is off the needles, how that went. I'm kind of, tomorrow afternoon, I have to clear out of the house for a little while, and I'm hoping I can like go to the coffee shop and have a good time with that. Okay, next things to show you are yarn that I have purchased since I saw you last. And well, this I didn't purchase. So John Arbin Textiles every so often sends me new yarns that they're milling. I've worked with their yarns in the past. And this is a brand new yarn of theirs called Seafarer Lace that is absolutely gorgeous. It is 90% British wool, which is Exmoor Blueface, Leicester, Devon Close Wool, and Romney, and 10% of mulberry silk. I have like a kind of color theme going lately that you're about to see as I show you all the other yarns. And if I put this under here, you can see that it's got this beautiful, like little bit of a dyed marl to it. Matches the nails real well as well. It's so pretty, and maybe Lola will use it in a future club. I'm not quite sure yet, but I think it would make a really nice like lacy winter scarf. Probably not in this color since we just did something very similar in a lace scarf. Another yarn that I got when I went to Maryland Sheep and Wool, it was great to see a few of you at Maryland Sheep and Wool, is I got some yarn from at Haynes House, and this is a community DK mini. It's called Shenanigans, which I love, but really I got it because it's the Knit for Food colors, and maybe you can tell that a little more if I hold it up here. It's got like the turquoise of Knit for Food and the orange, and I want to do something fun with it when we get around to Knit for Food next year. So I got like 5 or 6 of them. It's all she had, but she said she can make me more. I also got, because I have a color theme, like the yarn that literally matches what I'm wearing right now, this gorgeous, I got 2 skeins of this from Feederbrook Farm, and it's called Entropy DK. This colorway is called the Oops Factor. And I think it's a one-off. I don't think it is a color that she makes continuously, but let's go ahead and look at it closely. It is very similar to like Junction Fiber Mill or Spin Cycle, and that it's dyed in the wool. Feederbrook Farm has been doing yarns like this. I think they started the same time around Spin Cycle. I did some designs in their yarns in the past, but I've not ever done anything with their DK. I feel like it would make a really fun winter hood. Like maybe I haven't done a color work hood yet. I've done all the hoods, but not that yet. So pretty excited about this yarn. And then finally at Maryland Sheep and Wool, I also got a bunch of Miss Babs Billow in moss. This is the yarn I knit a scudola in, and I have an idea for it that hopefully it's going to be kind of my walking around on the cruise knitting project, because I think it's going to be lots of stockinette stitch for a little while. So really great for like traveling and chatting. It matches my plants very well. She's my plant one, And I don't have it here. I was just looking for it. There's that brioche boomerang that's almost done. That's going to be in testing soon that I did in Junction Fiber Mill that's got this green color in it. And I think they're going to look very good. It's going to be a good fall outfit. Let me tell you, I'm thinking ahead right now. Um, Finally, I taught at Buffalo Knitting Guild this weekend, which was a blast. And they had a surprise for me at the end of the weekend. And the Knit Buffalo yarn truck was there. And the Knit Buffalo yarn truck also dyes yarn. And this is from 716 Knit. And this is a self-striping yarn, which you know I love for socks, especially like Larch Peds and Novus Shorties. And it's got these beautiful like mints and rainbows and then gray in it. It reminds me of a certain someone who had a birthday recently, actually. And who's here? Miss Andrea, happy birthday. Favorite Andrea. So this skein of yarn is actually going to be the giveaway at the end of this live because I got myself one and I got one for you all as a giveaway. And it is a 80/20 merino wool nylon sock yarn. This is yarn that is designed for walking on. It's really, you can just tell it's going to be such a fun knit, this yarn. I'm pretty excited about it. So those are yarns that I purchased. I also at Maryland Sheep and Wool, we'll see if I get to this. I'm thinking I'm going to bring it on the cruise. I've got a lot of projects for this cruise. What I'm excited about this cruise is I'm doing it with Wild Onion, and it's one of the first times I've done a long ocean cruise where I'm like the hired hand. So I'm teaching a few classes, but I get to hang out a lot, and I'm not like in charge of everybody every night. So I get to like sit and knit and hang out with everybody. And I do this thing where if it's Laura hanging out with you, I wear my glasses. And then if it's Lola hanging out with you, then I put my contacts on and I have my reading glasses to make it pretty obvious, like when I'm in hang mode and when I'm in work mode. So this is this boot embroidery kit from Sabito Farms that I've been wanting to purchase forever. And I have a pair of Blundstones that I wear all the time. And I am thinking I'm going to do this cool embroidery with it. I'm pretty excited about it. I believe, I forget what the story is with this embroidery floss. I don't think it's naturally dyed, but I do think that she dyes it. And I'm pretty excited about this project. We'll see how it goes if that falls apart and they're like half embroidered while I'm hanging out and hiking in my shoes. So yeah, I went to Maryland. I taught in Buffalo last weekend. And the other thing that I did was go to H&H in Chicago, which I constantly call TNNA, which is the old industry trade show that I used to do for years when I worked with Schaefer. And now it's run by a company called H&H, and it is like what TNNA used to feel like. There are a lot of booths there with yarn companies and notions, and then there's like a whole sewing section, which I kept getting distracted by. And I went with my friend Chris from Connected Stitches, who has a yarn store in Dryden. And so she was kind of a yarn store and she was taking business classes and thinking about buying for the shop. And I was there to look for yarn for Lola's Choice and having a hard time finding things like in my price point. And then also connecting with people that I'd never met in real life, which was really, really fun. And I also found out about Signature Needle Arts getting not really purchased by Gu, but Gu is working with them to help them. I think Gu like bought the rights to produce the needles, and they make all their needles in China. You know that Gu's lace needles are my favorite needles. They're the needles that you just saw underneath the camera right there. And so they're going to start by making the Signature Needle Arts interchangeable tips. And those interchangeable tips are going to go onto the Gu cords. So some people who had the interchangeable system from Signature Needle Arts were not thrilled with the cords that Signature had. So if you have those tips, I do not believe they'll work with this system. I don't know if someone's going to ask if they have plans to make like a little connection. I do not know about that. All I know is that they are making Signature Needle Arts tips They're doing the stiletto tip only, and they're going to go on the Chogu cords. And I am very excited about that. Super excited about that. I am hopeful in the future that they will do double pointed needles, because their double pointed needles are my favorite needles for doing video tutorials with, and for knitting swatches, and also for jewelry designs. They're like for sure my favorite things to use for jewelry designs. So I'm hopeful that that will happen in the future. I did post about that right when I got back from on my way home from H&H, and there was some good Q&A in there as well. I also looked for yarns. These are just a few yarns of many yarns that I saw that I was intrigued by. That Lang paillettes over on the left-hand side is like it's like they're little teeny tiny sequins, and they're about like every centimeter on the yarn. That yarn is from Switzerland. It's a great like carry along yarn, and I'm actually knitting it on its own right now, and it kind of looks like metal, which is really cool. I loved that color of the Erica Knight Pure Tweed. I just took that picture to remember that I love like a natural with like little speckles of rainbow nips in it. And then linseed was really interesting on the end from Bahram U. That was like a linen and cotton blend that was quite intriguing. And then I want to tell you about this photo. So I'm going to show you this photo so you can just catch the vibe. I was wearing my Festivest. Festivest, because somebody is going to ask, is my Tosca vest, which I knit like in 2020. I designed Tosca. That's the cropped version in, I believe the gauge that I got was for the worsted. And I knit it with my Blingola yarn, which I have tons of it in my shop if you're like, I need a sparkly vest in my life. And I have to tell you that this evening I had was made for my Festivest. It was at Festivest. I never ended up wearing it during the holidays, which is why I knit it. And that was its first like outing, and it was made for a dance party. So what happened at H&H is I wasn't sure what I was doing the one night I was there, and I was chatting with Patty, and she said, if we go back to that photo, you can see Patty and Zandy over there on the left. Patty said, Zandy says that H&H After Dark is like the best bar mitzvah party you've ever gone to in your entire life. And I was like, I am all in. I am so going to that party. And Chris and I got tickets. And there was like, you know, food, there was like barbecue. It was fine. It was great. We all ate, hung out, chatted, had a drink. And then as soon as people had eaten, there was like a DJ and like 4 dancers and all of these tables of swag. And you can kind of see those tables with the dancers in the middle picture right there. And what was happening is they were playing very fun dance music, like all the dance music you've ever danced to at like a wedding or a bar mitzvah, like songs you know and love. And at the same time, they were throwing yarn into the crowd, like just tossing skeins of yarn. And in my blingy vest, I kept catching yarn because I'd be like, me, and they'd see me in my blingy vest. And then I would catch the yarn and then I would lob it because I didn't actually want like the Lion Brand chenille. And they were having so much fun lobbing the yarn because it wasn't going to hurt anybody, because it was like these soft bullet skeins. At one point, let me see if I can find something I would do with this. At one point, one of the guys had like 2 bullet skeins of yarn. These are clearly like long skeins, and he was dancing like they were his giant tatas. It was hysterical. I was like peeing in my pants. I kept having to run and go to the bathroom and come back and dance more. So much fun. And what we realized, we were like kind of talking about it, is like these guys had no idea what they were throwing, and they must do these things for like every convention, right? Like the urology convention, like I don't know, there's a convention for everything, like Chemists of America convention, astronomers of like upstate New York convention, whatever it is, right? They've got their things that they throw, whatever their swag is. And it was like, this must be one of the only times their swag is like soft and not going to hurt somebody, because when they got to like the crochet hooks and other stuff, they had to like bring that down and like dance with us and hand it out and then go back up, or like the people that came up to the stage, they'd lean down and give you something. super funny. I was like, if it's the urologist, convention, I wonder if they're like lobbing Viagra into the air, like what do you throw at whose convention? In the end, they raffled off two Janome sewing machines. I was one number off on one of my raffle tickets, which would have been kind of amazing. Did not win the Janome, but I had a very big takeaway that I'm excited to share with you all, and I feel like you're going to hear about this more and more. And my takeaway is that when I die, my family is not going to know what to do with my very, very large stash. And I want that party and I want my stash thrown to you people dancing. So then I thought, why don't we do that? Like maybe I'll do that when I'm ready to like whittle it down to the last 10 projects I'm ever going to knit, because hopefully I get to live a big full life and be in control of that section of my life, right? And we're going to have a giant ass yarn throwing party with my stash. So my husband knows, my daughter knows. I'm making sure like the word gets out there. The next time we go to do a will thing, I'll make sure to get that in my wool. Susie says she won an embroidery machine at one point at an event, which is totally awesome, Susie. Other stuff I got at H&H is the last afternoon I let myself look at sewing stuff a little bit more. And here's some fun friends I got to see at H&H, which was a blast. And at the end of the time, I was like, okay, I'm allowed to look at sewing stuff because I've done my yarn work. And in the middle right there, you'll see this lovely woman from Bengal Handloom. And I'm going to tell you about her in a second. I'm just forgetting her name, which makes me feel so bad. I try to write stuff down so I remember. But on the left, I had never seen the Fiore skirt from Closet Core Patterns. I really love the asymmetrical wrap one with just that one pocket on one side. So I bought that pattern and I'm going to sew that skirt, hopefully out of the fabric I'm about to show you. And then on the right, I'm obsessed with these Sashiko drawstring bag kits from Koki. They're super cool. And I did see that the Websters carry some of their stuff. So if you're like, ooh, I want to do a Sashiko project bag, I'm going to see if I can get them for the Japan cruise, because I think that they would be a really fun hand sewing project for us all to do on the Japan cruise. So if you're on the Japan cruise with me, forget that you just heard me say that. If you aren't on the Japan cruise with me, don't tell your friend if they're going on the Japan cruise. But I think they're beautiful. I'm quite intrigued by them. And I'm going to order one to make sure of that before I order enough for everybody. This is the gorgeous fabric I got from Bengal Handloom. It is all printed in Bengal, which is in northern India. And this was their first show that I believe that they've done with their fabrics. Their fabrics were absolutely gorgeous. I'm hoping there's enough to do that skirt with it. If not, I'll do something else really beautiful with it. They just set up their Instagram page and I was like, oh, you have Instagram? Let me follow you on Instagram. And I was their first follower on Instagram. So if you look up Bengal Handloom, you should totally follow them because they have just very few followers and it would be really fun to like throw them more sewers and crafters their way. Their fabric's stunning. I think my friend Anne at Flax and Twine ordered a bunch to carry in her shop. So that will be a place to get it. And then this is really funny because when I was in Portugal, I spent a lot of time trying to find cork fabric to sew bags with when I was in Portugal, because there's like all these bags that are made with printed cork fabric. And then I was walking around on that last day and I found a booth that sold rolls of cork fabric, and the cork is from Portugal, but then it's sent to China to get pressed into fabric. And so I got this really beautiful one with these flowers in it. And then this is kind of more blue than it looks under the camera. And this is orange. So they blend really nicely together. And I'm going to do some kind of little handbag with them. And I mean, also clearly I've got a color thing going. I'm just like really leaning so heart into this like blue and orange scenario. When you do that, all of your clothing matches when you kind of like dress the same in the same color family. So I always have this kind of like terracotta-y color family I dress in, and then I've kind of got the fall colors. This guy's an outlier right now, but they were made for each other, these two things. So these will get worn together and they're perfect for each other with my new jeans. So I've been trying to be like really deliberate when I'm knitting something or designing with something that it's going to like fit into my overall wardrobe so they don't just end up in bins. I like to wear what I knit. That is my goal. Okay. So sewing, I showed you that skirt that I want to make. I also am very intrigued by these bobby overalls that I saw at the beginning of May. I've already purchased the pattern for them, and I think I have a group locally that wants to sew those together this summer, so that's exciting. In terms of what I'm listening, reading, watching, eating, let's do that quickly and wrap it up. This has been a really fun live. I hope you all are having a good time. So as I get into telling you the reading, listening, watching, when I'm done with that, I'm going to look over at the comments because I have not seen if you've had a single question, and get ready to ask questions over there for me once I go through this section, okay? You can start popping them up anytime. Listening, I always listen to like books or podcasts. I've been listening to Amy Poehler's Good Hang, which I hadn't listened to, but I love Billie Eilish, and Billie Eilish was on there. And then I started doing a deeper dive, and I listened to Amy and Gwyneth Paltrow the other day. I think that was yesterday, and that was very fun. Max came in and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm having a good hang with Amy and Gwyneth." Shh. Gwyneth's talking about like cold plunging or mouth taping. I had no idea what mouth taping was, but she's pretty funny. They laughed really hard. And then the other thing that I'm listening to, because I'm finding balance between lightness and gravity, which I think is a very important place to be, to not kind of stick my head completely under the sand like sometimes I want to. I've been listening to a book called Know My Name, which is a memoir by Chanel Miller, and it was written in 2019. And Miller writes about her experience being sexually assaulted by a then Stanford University athlete, Brock Turner, in January of 2015, as well as the aftermath and court case. So it's about like a 17-hour listen. She reads her book that is about her experience, and her experience was painful, twofold painful. One, the rape that happened to her is unimaginable. And then the way that she was treated and accused within the court trial was really, she writes about it so like poignantly and beautifully and thoughtfully, and sometimes is angry and puts up walls and says what is acceptable and not acceptable, and other times she's incredibly vulnerable and raw and broken. And I heard about this book when it came out, but it kind of stumbled across it recently, and I know that it was like it came out right before the Me Too movement, and I felt like it was an important listen to give her like space and platform and voice, and to listen to one woman's experience. So I am halfway through that, and I listen to some of it every day, and then I move on to other things, and then I come back to it. In terms of reading, I just finished Kristin Hannah's Home Again, which was written in 2012. And somebody was asking me if it was like a sequel or her books built on each other. This one was a standalone book that I hadn't heard about. I love her other books like The Nightingale and Women and Four Winds and Great Alone. And I was surprised there was a book of hers I hadn't read. And it was really sad. It is about a soldier who flies Black Hawk, a female helicopter pilot who flies Black Hawks, who goes to Iraq and then comes back again. And I don't want to give too much away, but it was really sad. And I cried a fair amount. And I ended up having to stay up late and wake up early in the morning to finish it so I could just like get all of the anguish out and move on from it. And I just started last night, so I can't tell you that I love it, but I think I'm gonna love it. A book by Caro Burke called Yesteryear, and it is about a time traveling trad wife. If you don't know what a trad wife is somebody who just puts their wifely duties to like perfection, traditional wife. There's like, it's a trend right now. My friend a few weeks ago didn't know what it was, so I feel like I have to say. Sorry about that. In terms of watching, I went to see Sheep Detectives last weekend when I was in Buffalo with a few of the guild members. Hey, Sharon and Maureen, and that was really fun. I highly suggest going to see it in a theater if you can, or waiting for it to stream. It has Hugh Jackman in it, but he passes away pretty early on, and the sheep are basically, he's a shepherd, and his sheep are trying to figure out who murdered him because he used to always read them murder mysteries. It is based on a book called Three Bags Full by Leonie Swan. What's her name? I give myself notes, Leonie Swan. And I did not read the book, but I loved the movie. It's so funny. I think it's destined to become a cult classic. It's a freaking blast and a half. And the sheep are all CGI and they're so well done. And they have like full on communication with each other. And it's really funny. Like you could go with kids and there's kind of like adult humor and kid humor. I think it's PG, but it's not even PG-13. So it's great for a lot to see it. I know a lot of yarn stores have been doing these like lights up movie theater events with it where you can go and like knit and see your knitting. I just watched it. My knitting wasn't something I could do without being able to see it. I also am halfway through finally Remarkably Bright Creatures on Netflix, and that is a book that a lot of us read during the Keltopus knit along a few years ago, and it is all about a cleaner in an aquarium in Northern California who develops an incredible friendship with an octopus. And I was like, how are they going to make a movie about this? And they did a gorgeous job. I think CGI really helps you like suspend disbelief a little bit and just fall all the way into something. So I'm really enjoying that, and that's what I get to watch tonight while I am doing my beaded bind off. So excited to finish that up. In terms of eating, I think I made a really good chicken and rice soup last week and a really good like frittata-y thing. I've been kind of leaning into doing like a big tray egg bake that lasts a bunch of days. Tonight I'm making one and I think I'm going to try to do like little muffin cups of it so that we can have those and freeze those and then have them to like quickly eat on something. Since I'm home for a little while, I'm trying to kind of like fill up the freezer so that there's food when I'm busier. It's a little bit of a time to just lean into being here. My garden is going to get a lot of attention. We are just past the frost date. I do not plant sensitive plants until after Memorial Day here. So I feel safe. And if it frosts after Memorial Day, that is bullshit. And I'm going to give up gardening. How's that? In a nutshell. So, oh, the other thing I found in New York Times this week is a recipe for this like roasted lemon chickpea salad that sounds amazing. You roast slices of lemon, and then you take chickpeas and you make a sauce with like tons of dill and pickle and the lemon and some scallion. And what else was in there? The dill was like a major piece of it. And I think it's got like a little mayonnaise, and then you mix that all together and lay the lemon on top. And I think that sounds really good. So that is on my list with some local lamb chops for Friday night at the Nil Nerno's house. I am looking over to see if there are any questions. I don't see any. The yarn I'm using for the gray sweater I'm just finishing. Okay, That is Jill Draper Makes Stuff Lee. And it's 60% Rambouillet wool and 40% alpaca. It's a lace weight yarn. So this skein is 880 yards. For most of the sizes, 2 skeins would do it. I would say if you want to do a long sleeve while I'm doing it, sizes 1 and 2 you could do with 1 skein, but size 3 I clearly cut it really, really close on that. Let's see what else. I'm not sure if I see any other questions. Oh, and Buffy's coming in. Buffy, are you coming with your dad so he can help me finish it up? Okay, I don't see any others, which means I did good if I answered all your questions. So, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate you being here. Oh, the final thing is the giveaway. So this skein of yarn I'll give to one of you during my next live. So don't leave a comment in the live chat. Wait for the live to be over. And I need a new series to watch, something that has like a few seasons, hopefully something I haven't already watched, something I can do a deep dive on because I've got a few knitting projects I need to get done. So if you could comment underneath the video as soon as this live is over and let me know what series you've been really into lately. Don't leave it right here in the live. Wait till I'm done. Okay, Susan, I saw that you did that. Question for Club Kits. I appreciate growing the subscribers, keeping money down, but do I run the risk of not getting niche yarns? I don't think so, Maureen. That is a lovely, great question. What it means as the numbers grow is that I have to think a little farther out to order those yarns. So when the numbers are smaller, it's easier for me to be like, hey, I need this. Can you come and get that for me? But when I just need to pre-plan a little more, like if I need to have something milled, but I feel like I've got that down to a science. Okay, we're wrapping up. Leave a comment. As soon as we're done, you're going to win this gorgeous skein of self-striping sock yarn I bought for you. I appreciate you all. Happy knitting.